My late mom gave me her house and my brother demanded a share, but I refused because of his bad habits. He promised to change, then stole my money instead. Later, he got the wake-up call he needed. My mother, 61, passed away last month after a short battle with cancer. The past few weeks have been a complete blur. I, 27, have been struggling to process everything while also handling funeral arrangements, paperwork, and now her estate. I never imagined I'd be dealing with this at my age, especially not this soon. The reason I'm posting today is because of my younger brother Noah, 26M. We grew up relatively close despite being only 13 months apart. After Mom's funeral, we met with her lawyer to go over her will. I expected a straightforward process where we'd split everything equally. That's not what happened. Mom left her house, which is her only significant asset, entirely to me. Noah received some personal items and family heirlooms, but nothing of substantial financial value. When the lawyer finished reading the will, Noah looked completely shocked. He stayed quiet during the meeting, but as soon as we left the office, everything changed. Noah confronted me in the parking lot, accusing me of manipulating Mom to cut him out of her will. He demanded that I sell the house immediately and give him half of the money. When I tried to explain that I never discussed the will with Mom and had no idea she had planned this, he wouldn't listen. He called me a liar and said I always thought I was better than him. The conversation escalated until he was shouting in the middle of the parking lot. Several people turned to stare at us. I tried to calm him down, but he stormed off, saying he would contact a lawyer to contest the will. He hasn't spoken to me since, except to send text messages demanding his fair share of our mother's estate. Under normal circumstances, I would probably agree to sell the house and split the proceeds. The house is about an hour away from where I live and work, in an area that isn't likely to see much property value growth, but I hesitated because I think I understand why Mom made this decision, even though we never discussed it. Noah has always been extremely bright and charismatic. He scored nearly perfect on his SATs without much studying and was always popular in school. He got into an excellent university with a partial scholarship. But things started falling apart during his freshman year. He began struggling with various addictions, first alcohol, then gaming, and eventually harder substances. I offered multiple times to pay for rehabilitation programs, but he always refused. His substance use got worse over time, not better. Mom gave him her credit card to help with expenses during college, but he regularly charged thousands of dollars each month on things unrelated to his education. Eventually, she had to restrict him to a debit card with limited funds. His relationships have been chaotic too. He's had several girlfriends who he would break up with dramatically, sometimes threatening self-harm if they left him. During one particularly bad breakup, he got into a physical altercation with campus security that almost got him expelled. Despite his intelligence, Noah never graduated. He failed several classes, was suspended for a cheating incident, and eventually stopped attending altogether. He told Mom and me that he had graduated for almost a year before we found out the truth. Currently, he works part-time at a lab as a technician, a job that's well below his capabilities, but the only one he could get in his desired field without a degree. What makes this situation harder is that I've invested significantly in supporting our family financially. When Mom's health started declining 5 years ago, I took a high-stress job in finance instead of pursuing my passion for photography. The salary allowed me to pay off the remaining mortgage on Mom's house and set up a retirement fund for her. Mom had spent most of her savings putting us through college and supporting Noah's lifestyle afterward, so she had very little set aside. Noah knows all this. He knows I've been financially supporting Mom for years while he was still taking money from her. The inheritance would be about equivalent to 1 year of my current salary and bonus. A nice addition to my portfolio, but not life-changing. For Noah, however, it could be transformative if used wisely. My current plan is to sell the house and invest the proceeds in a diversified portfolio. I'm thinking about creating a trust fund for Noah that would pay for rehabilitation therapy or education if he decides to go back to school to finish his degree or even pursue a PhD, which he once talked about wanting to do. I would be willing to cover those expenses directly when he's ready. I'm worried that if I give him his half with no strings attached, he'll spend it on substances or expensive clothing, food, and technology that he's always buying, despite not having the income to support those purchases. At the same time, I know he's an adult and might see any conditions I set as controlling or patronizing. I haven't talked to any friends about this because it feels too personal. How do I manage this money in a way that actually helps Noah? And more importantly, how do I talk to him about it without causing an even bigger rift between us? Growing up, Noah was incredible. He was thoughtful and could make anyone laugh. He loved animals and would spend hours observing insects and birds in our backyard. He was on the track team in high school and won several regional competitions. I remember when he taught himself basic coding in middle school and created a simple game that impressed even our computer science teacher. I believe our father's intermittent emotional abuse affected Noah deeply. Dad left when Noah was 14, and while I managed to process that trauma through therapy, Noah always refused to talk about it. Sometimes I see glimpses of the brother I grew up with, moments when he expresses genuine regret and talks about wanting to change. Those moments give me hope that the person I knew is still there. Mom worked 2 jobs after Dad left to make sure we could both attend college. She was determined that we would have opportunities she never had. When Noah got his acceptance letter to his dream university, she cried from happiness. Even when he started having problems, she never gave up on him. She would call me worried about his behavior, but always ended those conversations by saying she believed he would figure things out eventually. The last time I visited Mom before her diagnosis, Noah was there too. He helped her in the garden and fixed a leaky faucet without being asked. They laughed together while looking through old photo albums. That's the brother I want to help, not enable. I'm not trying to control Noah's life. I just want to make sure Mom's final gift isn't wasted and that it actually helps him move toward a healthier future. But I don't know how to explain this to him when he's already convinced I've somehow stolen his inheritance. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your advice and perspectives helped me think through this complicated situation. I received hundreds of messages, and while I couldn't respond to them all, I read every single one. After posting, I decided to invite Noah over for dinner rather than trying to have this conversation over the phone or text. I spent the day cooking some of Mom's recipes, her lasagna that we both loved, and the apple pie she always made for our birthdays. I thought familiar food might help create a more comfortable atmosphere. To my surprise, Noah agreed to come. He showed up looking better than he had at the funeral. His eyes were clear, and he even offered to help finish cooking. While we prepared the food, we found ourselves reminiscing about childhood memories, staying up late playing video games, the guinea pig we begged Mom to let us have that ended up living for 7 years, and funny stories involving Mom's terrible sense of direction. For a while, it felt like we were reconnecting. I could see the brother I grew up with, smart, funny, and kind-hearted. After dinner, our conversation turned more serious. We talked about Dad for the first time in years. I shared how therapy had helped me process my anger and sadness about his treatment of us. Noah mostly listened, occasionally nodding. When I finally brought up the inheritance, I made it clear that I would not be giving him his half of the house money immediately. I explained that I had already set aside the money specifically for his education, therapy, and rehabilitation if he chose to pursue any of those things. I told him I would happily pay for those expenses directly whenever he was ready. The money from the house sale was already in a separate investment portfolio with his name on it. Noah didn't respond immediately. He sat silently for what felt like forever. Then, to my complete shock, he broke down crying. He apologized for how he had treated me and Mom over the years, the lies, the threats, the stealing. He admitted he still wanted to get his PhD like he'd planned since he was 17, but he was terrified of failing again. He explained that high school had been easy for him, but college was a completely different experience. In high school, he could get by with minimal effort. He was smart, athletic, and popular. He smoked weed and drank occasionally, but it never affected his performance. Then college hit him hard. He couldn't coast anymore. The academic demands were higher, and his first serious relationships were turbulent. He turned to harder substances to cope. The shame of not graduating became overwhelming. He lied about it for months because he couldn't face disappointing Mom and me. As he spoke, my heart broke for him. The weight he'd been carrying all these years suddenly made sense. We talked until sunrise. Before he left, I told him how proud I was of his honesty and his desire to change. I promised I would support him however I could. We hugged for the first time since Mom's funeral, and he promised to message me about next steps. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as he left. I truly believed he had hit rock bottom and was ready to make positive changes. I was wrong. He hadn't reached rock bottom yet. The next day, Noah stopped responding to my messages and emails. The day after that, I received alerts from my bank about suspicious transactions. Noah had stolen my debit card information during our dinner. I was shocked and hurt beyond words. I messaged him about how his actions made me feel and warned him that if he did this to someone else, there could be serious legal consequences. He didn't respond to that message or any others I sent over the next week. I monitored his social media to make sure he was alive, but otherwise gave him space. I figured he was avoiding me out of shame or was back to using substances. Either way, I decided to wait for him to reach out when he was ready. 2 weeks after the theft incident, I received a call from Noah at 3 a.m. He was on a weekend trip with friends that had involved heavy drinking and drug use. His best friend and former roommate Marcus had overdosed and died. Noah called me from the hospital, barely able to speak through his sobs. Marcus was an only child whose parents lived overseas. Like Noah, he was incredibly intelligent and had managed to graduate near the top of his class despite struggling with substance abuse. His parents were devastated. The friend who had supplied the drugs disappeared after the incident and didn't even attend the memorial service. The whole situation was heartbreaking for everyone involved. This tragedy became the catalyst for real change. Noah finally agreed to see a therapist to address his grief addiction and trauma from our father's abuse. It took some time to find the right fit. The fourth therapist we tried clicked with him, and he's been seeing her regularly for the past month. Noah also moved out of the apartment he shared with friends who were heavy users. He now lives with my friend from high school, Ben, who needed a roommate. They get along well, and Noah says he's been clean since the move. I believe him, though. I know there's no way to be completely certain. Noah pays his own rent from his part-time job, and I pay for his therapy sessions. He's apologized repeatedly for stealing my card information and acknowledged it was his addiction driving that behavior. He's also developed an intense exercise routine, running miles daily, lifting weights, and suddenly becoming vegan. I suspect he's channeling his addictive tendencies into fitness, which seems like a healthier outlet. Update 2. Noah and I talk regularly now. We meet for coffee on weekends, occasionally play video games online, and text throughout the week. I've been trying to be supportive without being overbearing, a balance many of you suggested in your comments. His mental state has improved dramatically, though recovery isn't a straight line. He still has difficult days, but overall, he's doing much better than I've seen him in years. The biggest news is that Noah is returning to university next semester to complete his degree. This wasn't an easy process. Because of his academic record, multiple failed semesters, the cheating incident where he let Marcus copy part of his exam, and the altercation with campus police during his breakup, the university was hesitant to readmit him. After several meetings with the dean, who fortunately was sympathetic to his situation, Noah has been given one final chance. He needs to pass 4 specific classes to graduate. While his GPA won't be impressive, having the degree will be a significant step forward. The question of whether he'll be able to pursue a PhD remains open. The prestige of his university works in his favor, but his academic record and lack of research experience work against him. Regardless, completing his undergraduate degree is the necessary first step. I paid his tuition for the upcoming semester, which feels like exactly what Mom would have wanted. Noah has been studying on his own to prepare, determined not to waste this opportunity. He's also continuing therapy and maintaining his sobriety. Last weekend, we visited Mom's grave together for the first time since the funeral. Noah brought wildflowers, Mom's favorite, and we spent an hour there just talking about our memories of her. Noah shared stories I'd never heard about how Mom would secretly help him with his science projects in middle school, pretending she needed his help, but actually guiding him through the process. He also revealed something that surprised me. During Mom's final weeks, when I was handling her medical appointments and insurance paperwork, Noah would visit her during the day while I was at work. He said they had long conversations where she encouraged him to get his life back on track. She apparently told him she believed in him completely, even when he couldn't believe in himself. Noah said those conversations were part of what made Marcus's death so devastating. He felt like he was failing Mom all over again by continuing down the same destructive path. The night Marcus overdosed, Noah realized he could easily have been the one who died. He described it as a moment of clarity that cut through years of denial. Noah asked if I knew why Mom had left the house to me. I told him I could only guess that perhaps she worried giving him a large sum of money while he was still struggling with addiction might do more harm than good. Noah nodded and said that was exactly what she told him during one of their private conversations. According to Noah, Mom explained that she was leaving the house to me because she trusted me to make the right decisions for both of us. She apparently told him that when he was ready, I would help him build the future she knew he was capable of achieving. I had no idea they had discussed this, but it aligned perfectly with the plan I had already developed. This revelation brought me an unexpected sense of peace. I'd been carrying the weight of this decision, worried I wasn't honoring Mom's wishes correctly. Knowing she had explicitly trusted me with this responsibility validated the approach I'd taken. Noah seems genuinely committed to his recovery and education. He's maintained his intense exercise routine, but has balanced it with other activities. He joined a recreational soccer league and has been reading voraciously, something he enjoyed as a child but abandoned during his college years. The trust fund I established for his education has been formally set up with clear parameters. Besides education expenses, it can cover continued therapy, health insurance, and emergency medical costs. Noah was involved in establishing these guidelines and agreed they made sense. Update 3. It's been 9 months since Mom passed away and so much has changed. I wanted to share this final update because many of you have sent messages asking how things turned out. Noah completed his first semester back at university and passed all his classes. It wasn't easy. He studied constantly and sought help from teaching assistants and study groups. His professors noted his improved attitude and commitment. For the first time in years, Noah seemed proud of his academic accomplishments. Even though his grades weren't perfect, the most significant change came 3 months ago when Noah was accepted into a prestigious research internship program. One of his professors, impressed by his perseverance, recommended him despite his academic record. The position is in environmental science, focusing on habitat restoration, combining Noah's love of nature with his scientific background. This internship has opened doors we didn't think possible. Noah's supervisor has mentioned the possibility of Noah joining their graduate program next year if he continues to perform well. The program has a strong focus on field research rather than classroom academics, which seems like a better fit for Noah's learning style. Noah has maintained his sobriety for 8 months now. He still attends therapy weekly and has connected with a support group for young adults in recovery. He's developed healthy friendships through his internship and soccer league, gradually distancing himself from his former social circle. We've established a new tradition of monthly dinners where we cook Mom's recipes together. During our last dinner, Noah revealed he's been volunteering at a youth center, talking to teenagers about substance abuse and mental health. Hearing him speak candidly about his experiences and watching him connect with these kids has been remarkable. The house sold 2 months ago for slightly above asking price. As planned, most of the proceeds remain in the trust fund for Noah's education and well-being. I did make one change to our arrangement. I released a small portion of the funds directly to Noah so he could purchase a reliable car to commute to his internship site, which is in a remote area poorly served by public transportation. This decision was based on Noah's demonstrated responsibility over the past several months. He researched affordable, fuel-efficient options and chose a practical used vehicle rather than something flashy. He's maintained it carefully and even helped a colleague with rides when their car broke down. Marcus's parents visited last month for the 1-year anniversary of their son's death. Noah organized a small memorial gathering at a local park. Watching him support Marcus's parents through their grief showed me how much he's matured. He spoke about how Marcus's death changed his perspective and led him to make different choices. The friend who supplied the drugs that night reached out to Noah recently asking to reconnect. Noah declined, explaining that while he didn't blame him for what happened, he needed to maintain distance from anyone associated with that lifestyle. It was a difficult decision that showed his commitment to his recovery. Noah and I still have disagreements, and his recovery isn't perfect. There have been challenging days and moments of tension, but the constant anger and volatility that characterized our relationship after Mom's death has been replaced by mutual respect and understanding. I believe Mom would be proud of both of us, not just of Noah's progress, but of how we've managed to navigate this difficult situation together. The inheritance that initially drove us apart has ultimately funded Noah's second chance exactly as she might have hoped. Noah has begun talking about possibly teaching or working in conservation once he completes his education. Watching him discover purpose and direction after years of struggling has been the greatest outcome of this difficult journey. As for me, I've started taking photography classes on weekends, something I set aside years ago when I chose financial security over passion. Noah encouraged me to pursue this interest again, pointing out that Mom would want both of us to build fulfilling lives. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in years, I'm hopeful about Noah's path forward. The road hasn't been straight or easy, but we're both finding our way. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My elderly parents scammed me for $100,000 and disappeared. When I tried to find them to sue them, my wife asked me not to do so. Later, I found that this scam went deeper than I had thought. I, 44M, have been married for 15 years and recently found myself in a devastating family situation. I own a chain of cafes that I run with some business partners. We've done fairly well over the years, starting from a single location and expanding to 5 cafes across the city. It wasn't an easy journey, but with hard work and some luck, we managed to build a successful business. My parents, 64M and 63F, approached me a few months ago, saying they needed money to save their property. They explained they had a considerable amount of debt because of the expenses related to my upbringing, and some poor financial decisions they made over the years. Growing up, we weren't wealthy by any means. My parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Dad was a factory worker who often took on overtime shifts while Mom juggled between a part-time teaching job and running a small tailoring business from home. They sacrificed a lot to give me a good education and opportunities they never had. I remember the day they scraped together enough money to buy me my first computer when I was in high school. It was secondhand and outdated, but to me, it was everything. That computer sparked my interest in business management software, which eventually led me to study business in college. According to my parents, most of the loan was from my mom's elder brother, Uncle Jim, who had passed away last year. Uncle Jim was always the successful one in the family. He owned a construction company and lived in a big house in the suburbs. He was also the one who loaned my parents money for my college tuition when their savings fell short. Everything Uncle Jim owned went to his elder son, my cousin Derek, who's always been a bit of a bully. Derek and I never got along as kids. He was 3 years older and always made sure I knew he was better off than me. As adults, we barely spoke, only seeing each other at mandatory family gatherings. My parents said Derek wanted the total money back or he'd file a lawsuit against them. They claimed they had given most of it back already and now needed only $100,000 to be debt-free. The story seemed plausible given Derek's character and my family's financial history. When I suggested talking to Derek directly, my parents insisted he wasn't ready to communicate. They seemed desperate, almost panicky. Mom's hands shook as she explained the situation, and Dad looked more worn out than I'd ever seen him. It was hard to see them like this, especially knowing how much they'd sacrificed for me over the years. After much deliberation, I decided to help. I gave them the $100,000 they asked for, but we kept the transaction off the books. It was a significant amount for me. It had taken almost 16 years to save that money. This was money I had set aside for my kids' college fund and as a safety net for my family's future. I handed over the money feeling a mix of concern and relief. I thought I was doing the right thing, helping the people who had given up so much for me. Little did I know this decision would turn my life upside down. A week after I gave them the money, my parents sold their house. I was surprised but thought maybe they were downsizing to manage their finances better. But then, they vanished. Their phones were disconnected, emails bounced back, and none of our relatives knew where they were. I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't believe they would do this to me after everything we'd been through as a family. The betrayal cut deep, making me question every memory, every sacrifice I thought they'd made for me. I kept thinking about all the times they'd supported me, trying to reconcile those memories with their recent actions. How could the same people who worked extra shifts to buy me that secondhand computer turn around and scam me? The situation has caused a significant rift between my wife and me. When I first told her what happened, she was shocked and sympathetic. She held me as I broke down, assuring me we'd figure it out together. But as days passed and I started talking about suing my parents to recover the money, she became increasingly resistant to the idea. "They're your parents," she kept saying. "You can't sue your own family." But I felt I had no choice. This wasn't just about the money. It was about the breach of trust, the lies, and the complete disregard for our relationship. My wife and I have been arguing about this constantly. She thinks I'm overreacting and that there must be some explanation. But I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. Why would my parents, who always preached about honesty and integrity, suddenly act this way? I've tried reaching out to other family members, but no one seems to know where my parents are. My aunts and uncles are just as shocked as I am. Some of them have sided with me while others think I should let it go for the sake of family peace. The whole situation has me questioning everything. I've always prided myself on being a good judge of character, but now I'm not so sure. If my own parents could deceive me like this, who can I trust? I've been losing sleep over this, replaying every conversation in my head, trying to find clues I might have missed. Did they give any hints about their plans? Were there warning signs I ignored? The cafe business has been suffering because of my distraction. My business partners have been patient, but I know they're concerned. I've tried to focus on work, but it's hard when your personal life is in shambles. I remember the day we opened our first cafe. It was a tiny place, barely bigger than a food truck, but it was ours. My parents were there beaming with pride. Dad even worked the register for the first week to help us out. Mom baked muffins every morning to supplement our limited menu. They believed in me when no one else did. Now I find myself staring at the walls of our flagship store, wondering if those memories are even real. Did they support me because they loved me, or were they investing in a future payday? I've considered hiring a private investigator to find my parents, but part of me is afraid of what I might discover. What if they're in trouble? What if they were forced into this somehow? Or worse, what if they really did just take the money and run? The $100,000 was meant to be a safety net for my family's future. My wife and I had talked about using it for our kids' college funds or as a down payment on a vacation home. Now those dreams seem out of reach. I'm torn between my anger at being betrayed and my worry for my parents' well-being. Despite everything, I can't help but hope there's a reasonable explanation for all of this. I'm not sure what to do next. Should I go ahead with the lawsuit, try to find them myself, or should I listen to my wife and let it go? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. It's been a month since my last post and things have taken an even more shocking turn. After much internal debate and several heated arguments with my wife, I decided to go ahead with the lawsuit against my parents. This decision led to a major blowout with my wife. She was vehemently against it, saying I was tearing the family apart. Her reaction seemed extreme, even considering her previous objections. One night, after a particularly heated argument where she accused me of being heartless and selfish, I noticed my wife acting suspiciously with her phone. She kept taking it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, which was unusual for her. My gut told me something was off, so I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her phone while she was sleeping. What I found left me speechless. There were dozens of messages between her and my parents. It turns out they had been in constant contact this whole time. As I read through the messages, my world crumbled around me. It became clear that my parents did have the money to pay off their debt, but they didn't want to do that. Instead, they had planned with my wife to scam me out of the $100,000. The messages revealed that my wife was getting a share of the money. They had concocted an elaborate story about the debt and the threatening cousin, knowing I would want to help my parents. My wife's role was to convince me to give them the money and then discourage me from pursuing legal action when they disappeared. I was blindsided. Not only had my parents betrayed me, but my wife of 15 years was also involved. The person I trusted most, who I thought would always have my back, had been lying to my face for weeks. As I scrolled through their conversations, I found messages dating back months before my parents asked for the money. They had been planning this for a long time. There were discussions about how to approach me, what story would be most convincing, and how to handle the aftermath. I felt physically ill as I read my wife coaching my parents on how to act desperate and worried. She knew all my weak spots, all the buttons to push to make me want to help. She used her knowledge of our financial situation to determine exactly how much they could ask for without raising suspicion. The betrayal cut deep. I thought back to all the nights I'd spent tossing and turning, worried about my parents while my wife comforted me. All those times she'd told me to let it go, to forgive them. It was all part of their plan. I confronted my wife the next morning. At first, she tried to deny it, but when I showed her the messages, she broke down. She confessed to everything, saying she did it because we needed the money. Apparently, she had gotten us into some debt with online shopping and gambling, which she had been hiding from me. She sobbed as she explained how it started as a small thing. A few online purchases here, a bit of online poker there, but it snowballed, and before she knew it, she was in deep. When my parents approached her with their plan, she saw it as a way out of the hole she dug for us. I was too angry and hurt to even process her excuses. The woman I'd shared my life with for 15 years, the mother of my children, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I asked her to leave the house immediately. She's currently staying with her sister, and I've told her not to contact me except through my lawyer. I've expanded the lawsuit to include my wife. Now, I know this might seem extreme to some, but I can't let this level of betrayal go unpunished. The trust in both my marriage and my relationship with my parents has been irreparably broken. The hardest part has been explaining the situation to our kids. They're 13 and 11, old enough to understand that something serious is happening, but young enough to be confused and hurt by it all. I've tried to be honest with them without vilifying their mother or grandparents, but it's a delicate balance. My daughter, always perceptive, asked me if this meant we wouldn't be going on the family vacation we'd been planning. My son, usually so stoic, broke down crying when he realized his mom wouldn't be living with us anymore. Their pain only adds to my anger at the situation. My business partners have been incredibly supportive through all of this. They've stepped up to handle more of the day-to-day operations, giving me time to deal with the legal and personal fallout. I'm grateful for their understanding, but I know I need to get back to work soon for my own sanity. I've started seeing a therapist to help me process everything. It's been helpful to have someone objective, to talk to someone who can help me navigate the storm of emotions I'm feeling. Some days I'm consumed by anger, other days the sadness is overwhelming, and then there are days when I feel nothing at all, which is almost worse. The lawsuit is moving forward, but it's a slow process. My lawyer is optimistic about our chances of recovering the money, but warns it could take a while. In the meantime, I'm focusing on healing and rebuilding my life without the people I thought I could trust most. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and a lot has happened. The lawsuit against my parents and soon-to-be ex-wife is progressing, but it's been a challenging and emotional journey. My lawyer suggested hiring a professional to locate my parents as they were still off the grid. After some searching, we finally found them. They were living in a small coastal town hundreds of miles away from our home. They had bought a modest house with some of the money they took from me. When confronted, my parents initially tried to maintain their story about the debt. But faced with the evidence we had gathered, including the messages with my wife, they finally admitted to the scam. Their confession was both a relief and a new source of pain. They expressed remorse, claiming they never meant to hurt me, but I found it hard to believe or accept their apology. My mother broke down crying, telling me how they had always struggled financially and saw this as their only chance at a comfortable retirement. She spoke about the years of financial stress, the constant worry about making ends meet. She talked about watching their friends retire comfortably while they still live paycheck to paycheck. In her mind, this wasn't just about the money, it was about finally having peace of mind in their golden years. My father, on the other hand, remained stoic and unapologetic. He argued that after all they had done for me, they deserved the money. He brought up every sacrifice they'd made, the extra jobs, the missed vacations, the hand-me-down clothes they wore, so I could have new ones. In his eyes, this was simply balancing the scales. His attitude only fueled my determination to see the lawsuit through. I reminded him of all the times I'd helped them over the years, paying off their car, helping with medical bills, even offering to help them relocate to a cheaper area when they complained about the cost of living. I had always been there for them, and this is how they repaid me. The revelation of my parents' location and their confession has added new complexity to the legal proceedings. My lawyer is confident that we have a strong case, but warns that family court cases can be unpredictable and emotionally draining. On the personal front, I've been struggling to cope with the aftermath of these betrayals. My kids are having a hard time understanding why they can't see their grandparents or their mother. I've arranged for them to start therapy to help them process everything that's happening. My daughter, always close to her grandparents, keeps asking when she can visit them. She doesn't understand why the people who used to babysit her and take her to the park are suddenly off limits. My son, on the other hand, has become withdrawn. His grades are slipping and he's lost interest in his usual hobbies. My soon-to-be ex-wife has been trying to reconcile sending messages through her lawyer about how sorry she is and how she wants to make things right, but I'm not ready to forgive or trust her again. The divorce proceedings are moving forward and we're negotiating custody arrangements for our children. Work has been my main source of stability during this tumultuous time. I've thrown myself into expanding the cafe chain, using it as a distraction from my personal problems. We're looking at opening 2 new locations in the coming months, which has been a welcome positive focus. I've also been leaning heavily on my friends for support. They've been amazing, offering everything from a listening ear to help with the kids. My best friend Mike has been particularly supportive. He's been coming over regularly, helping with household chores and keeping me company on the weekends when the kids are with their mother. As difficult as this whole experience has been, it's also been a wake-up call. I'm learning to set better boundaries, to trust my instincts, and to value myself more. It's a painful lesson, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger and wiser. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm finally starting to see some resolution to this painful saga. The lawsuit against my parents and ex-wife has concluded, and I wanted to share the outcome with you all. After months of legal battles, numerous court appearances, and mountains of paperwork, the court ruled in my favor. My parents and ex-wife have been ordered to repay the full $100,000 plus interest and legal fees. The judge was particularly harsh in his criticism of their actions, calling it a deplorable breach of family trust. The day of the final hearing was intense. I sat in the courtroom, my stomach in knots, as the judge delivered his verdict. My parents sat on one side, looking older and more worn than I'd ever seen them. My ex-wife was on the other side, her eyes red from crying. Despite everything, a part of me still aches seeing them like this. My parents, faced with the court order, have agreed to sell their coastal home to repay me. They're moving back to our hometown, where they'll be staying with my aunt until they can get back on their feet. The house sold quickly given the desirable location, but for less than they'd hoped. They'll have just enough left over for a small apartment rental. Dad called me after the sale, his voice gruff with emotion. He said they were sorry that they never meant for things to go this far. Mom got on the phone too, sobbing as she apologized. They asked if there was any way we could reconcile, any way to rebuild our relationship. I told them I needed time. My ex-wife, unable to pay her share immediately, has agreed to a payment plan. She's taken a second job to meet the payments. Our divorce has been finalized and we've settled on a co-parenting arrangement for our kids. It's still tense between us, but we're trying to keep things civil for the children's sake. The first time I had to drop the kids off at her new apartment was awkward. She's living in a small 2-bedroom place now, a far cry from our family home. The kids were excited to see her, which was both heartwarming and painful to watch. As I left, I caught her looking at me with a mixture of sadness and regret. For a moment, I was reminded of the woman I fell in love with all those years ago. But the memory of her betrayal quickly overshadowed any lingering feelings. Speaking of the kids, they're slowly adjusting to our new reality. The therapy has been helping, and they're starting to understand that sometimes good people can make bad choices. It's been a tough lesson for all of us. My daughter still asks about her grandparents occasionally, but less frequently now. My son's grades have started to improve, and he's showing interest in his hobbies again. The cafe business has been a silver lining throughout this ordeal. The 2 new locations we open are doing well, and we're even considering expanding to a neighboring state. My partners have been incredibly supportive, and this experience has only strengthened our business relationship. Focusing on work has been a welcome distraction from my personal troubles. On a personal level, I'm still working through my trust issues in therapy. It's a slow process, but I'm making progress. I've started dating again, taking it slow and being upfront about my recent experiences. It's been nice to remember that there are still honest, trustworthy people out there. I met Sarah at a local business owner meetup. She runs a small bookstore and has been through a difficult divorce herself. We've been on a few dates, and while I'm not ready for anything serious, it's nice to have someone who understands what I'm going through. I've also been working on rebuilding some family relationships. My aunts, uncles, and cousins have been understanding and supportive throughout this whole ordeal. We've been having regular family dinners, minus my parents, of course. It's helped remind me that family is about more than just blood relations. Last week, my cousin Derek, the one my parents claimed was threatening to sue them, reached out to me. He had heard about what happened from other family members and wanted to clear the air. We met for coffee, and he explained that he had never asked my parents for money. In fact, he said Uncle Jim had forgiven most of the debt before he passed away. This conversation brought some closure, but also opened up new questions about my parents' motivations. As for my parents, I'm still not ready to have them back in my life. They've sent letters of apology, but I'm not sure I'll ever be able to fully trust them again. For now, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward with my life. The kids have asked about seeing their grandparents. I'm considering allowing supervised visits in the future, but I'm not there yet. My therapist has advised taking it slow and prioritizing my children's well-being in any decisions about family reunification. This whole experience has been a harsh lesson in the importance of financial independence and the dangers of blind trust, even in close family relationships. While I wouldn't wish this situation on anyone, I've grown from it. I'm more cautious now, but also more appreciative of the genuine relationships in my life. As I sit here in my office overlooking the bustling cafe below, I can't help but reflect on how much has changed in the past year. The journey has been painful, but I'm starting to see a way forward. I'm focusing on being the best father I can be, growing my business, and slowly rebuilding my personal life. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and kind words have been a source of strength during some of my darkest moments. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Life goes on, and I'm determined to make the best of it.